Jason Gearld is joining me from Southern California, and I'll let Jason tell a little bit of his story, who he is, and but you'll hear. So listen on, Jason. Welcome.
Hey, thanks a lot, Brian. Appreciate you letting me come on the show.
Yeah, for sure, man. I'm glad you got time to jump on this evening. Tell me, I know who you are, but let's who's Jason Gearld, and what do you got going on?
Well, currently Jason Gearld is the owner of Phoenix Handlebars, new company that is handlebars for dirt bikes, primarily dirt bikes. That's all we really sell, but of course you can slam them on whatever you want. So that's what I do today. I'm 20 plus years in the motorcycle industry, and I'm a lifelong motorcycle enthusiast. Grew up in very rural Indiana. Like, even seeing a motorcycle back in the day, it felt like seeing a celebrity. And there was a nearby track, and I remember like when they would have a race, I'd sit on the front lawn just to watch a motorcycle in the back of the truck go by. No joke. I mean, I just thought that was just like seeing a motorcycle was rad. So, fast forward as I got older, and you tend to think that you got to go to college and do all those things, like, give yourself a better life. I certainly tried. It wasn't for me. I started working in a really cool accessory store there in Indiana called Stoughton Cycle. It was pre-internet era, so I felt like we were really ahead of the curve. We had all the cool stuff, and that's where I learned kind of my chops and found the love of being in the industry. And at the time it was cool because, the trade show just switched from going to Cincinnati and Columbus and started coming to Indy. So that was neat because a lot of people were stopping by our store, and I kind of got to know some of the other industry insiders. And again, that's kind of like where things started for me. I worked in shops, which the tie-in there with what you do is why I find it still, I always have this soft spot in my heart, because I know that, I've been in shops, and I know how important it is to have our dealerships be strong, to keep our industry strong.
Where'd you go? Because you're in Southern California now.
Yeah.
How'd you get from Indiana to Southern California? What? Because I think a lot of us have a story of how I got from where I grew up to where I got into the business and really did things differently in the business. I'd like to kind of hear more about that.
Well, worked in a handful of shops there in Indiana. As a lot of people from the Midwest can probably attest to. Most people have never traveled west of the Mississippi. Well, eventually I did on a snowboard trip and found Montana and fell in love with the mountains. While I was out there, I went to a shop called Team Bozeman, happened to hit it off with the owner, went home to Indiana, told my parents, I'm like, I got to go see this other part of the world. So I loaded up everything, loaded up a KX125 and everything I owned in the back of my little S10, and me and my mullet headed west. And I went to Montana, and I walked into the shop, and he gave me a job. And so I became parts manager at the shop in Bozeman, Montana. My Fox rep back in Indiana, who I talk to all the time, his name's Joey, he told me that there was a position coming open at Fox, and I should go to Fox and be his inside sales rep. And I'm like, yeah. That's really going to happen. And a few months later, I was loading the KX125 back up into the pickup truck, and I drove to Morgan Hill, California to work for Fox Racing. Never been to California. Of course, in my mind, everything was LA or Hollywood, and Morgan Hill was very much not that, although it was a pretty bitchin' little city at the town, because it was Fox Racing, Specialized Bicycles, and Custom Chrome. So all this really coolness in one town. And I walked through those doors like I had just won the lotto, and it was awesome. And I ended up doing 12 years there. I don't know if you've had Phil Amendolia on as a guest yet, but
yes,
still president over at LS2. He was the guy that I interviewed with, and he hired me to work at Fox after about a 5-minute phone conversation. And so I thank him even to this day. I'm like, dude, I'm still here because you gave me a nod.
You're an example, as was I, to, not be afraid to make a move. You can always backtrack if you need to, but put yourself in a position to see, what somebody else at the place you're potentially wanting to be sees and finds a value in, and moves you on to things you didn't even see in yourself.
Well, when I was an inside sales guy at Fox, the first territory they gave me was Ohio and Indiana. 'Cause I spoke fluent redneck, so I was able to like kind of like talk to the people, and in so many ways, a lot of these kids working in shops looked to me as like kind of like a little hero because I was like this guy that they all knew was from Indiana. And it's like, how do you get into the motorcycle industry? And I'm kind of like, well, this is how, talking to me and stuff like that. Because if you're good, somebody's going to put their nod against you, and then next thing you know, you're like loading up your S10 and taking your mullet across the country, to go work wherever it might be. And I was like, I loved like always trying to help people like figure out what it was that they wanted to do in the industry, because I wasn't college material. I certainly tried, but I wasn't college material. I'd really rather have read motocross action like a lot of people, but the thing is I knew that I could take it from being just a lazy kid reading MXA and dirt bike and going on to do what it is that I did. It started off working in dealerships, but eventually ended up on the other side of the counter, and I've lived a lot of my own dream, and I'm continuing to do that now, even with Phoenix Handlebars.
It's I tell me if I'm wrong, but it's not like you ever really get to where you're like, this is the dream, right? Because you've gotten into a place where you're putting out your own products, you're designing products and different things you do. You're doing other things. It's not like I would say, you say, man, I'm set. Here I am. I put my feet up. I'm sure you're on to looking at the things you want to do to continue to develop those. But it's nice to be probably in a place where you feel like you've attained a certain amount of what you were after. And, to me, it seems like probably you got a whole bunch of other things that you now are after.
We don't make a lot of money like working in the motorcycle industry, as you might know. And my childhood best friend, who also went to Purdue, and I was kind of like making something like a little joke about how he's successful and I'm not. And he kind of turned to me and he was like, dude, shut up. That's bullshit. He's like, you have lived your dream. He's like, you are successful. And it was kind of that day was the day that I was like, he's right. I've done what so many of us wish that we could do. And that's, work in something that we love and be around motorcycles. And that's the thing. Like, I've talked to you in the past. I will always be a rah-rah cheerleader for those of us in the motorcycle industry to remind them it's like, yeah, it's tiresome work. We're not making a lot of coin. We might wear a lot of hats and have ambiguous, job titles. But at the end of the day, there's people who would like absolutely like kill to like do what it is that we do. Go into trade shows. You'll never hear me complain about trade shows because I'm like, that's like a home, like a homecoming, like going and seeing like all
candy
your
store, right?
I love it. Yeah. Like people like who don't want to go to AIM. I'm like, dude, let me at it. It's like, it's awesome to go see like everybody and go, and I haven't seen you in like 1 year. It was last year that I saw you. So it's like, now I get to like say hi. And even though we might talk like on the phone or see stuff via social, it's still, there's something about just sitting there rapping with like one of your friends. I love it.
Phoenix Handlebars, right? So I'm looking at the website right now. Stuff looks awesome. I like the graphic and the logo and all that. What's I don't know if you want to give the background or the story to do with Phoenix, or if it's, just should represent itself sort of without discussion. Some artists are that way. I don't know that that's you, but.
No, here we go. So, love of entrepreneurial stuff started when I was like at Fox and like in the Silicon Valley. And I got kind of moved by a lot of those brands that were sort of bucking the system, doing things that, and of course Netflix always like comes to mind because they were doing things that were different. While I was at MSR, we were under the same roof as Pro Taper, and actually at the time Mag even owns Renthal, and which is kind of strange bedfellows. What I was doing at MSR from a marketing standpoint was trying to bring back, like, change this like company from being three little letters, MSR. MSR stood for Malcolm Smith Racing. And Malcolm Smith, as you know, is this fun-loving motorcycle guy. Whether it was racing or just riding for fun, the guy always had a smile on his face. So I thought that what we were building with MSR was pretty rad in trying to tell a marketing story that was not just about being a racer, but was just about being a rider. Unfortunately, Mag, killed off the brand and I lost my job. So as I'm home figuring out what is next, I wanted to continue to tell that story of what we were working on from MSR in a marketing story to my own brand. And my son's name is Phoenix, so that's where the name came from.
Nice.
And like I say, everybody kind of goes with that Firebird sort of logo that's a little cliche these days. I have a friend that worked over at Fox Racing, and he blew me out of the water with a logo that still had this bird element with the wings, but didn't look like the stereotypical Firebird, which I thought was really cool. And it looked good, like on the crossbar pad. And from a product standpoint, I thought that there was always bars are complicated. Anybody who's bought handlebars knows that there's a ton of different bends. Their width, the sweep, the height, and then there's several other measurements that I'll show you. And it becomes complicated even though even if you're a seasoned veteran, let alone these new people who are getting into our industry and don't know where to even begin. So I was like, I don't think it has to be quite so complicated. So I created there's only 4 bins of handlebars. They're all the same width. They're 800 millimeters wide with a 57 millimeter sweep. And then there's 4 height options. There's 70, 80, 90, and 100. And I thought, well, working off of even increments makes it a little bit easier for people to do math. Motorcycle people don't want to be having to do math to figure out what size bars they need. So I wanted to make it, simplify it down. And I knew that what I was giving people was a solid product, great bend. 95% of the people are going to be able to jump on these bars and be fine. There's that few percentage that are a little bit more anal retentive. And then after that, it was to tell the story of our riders. We're not the hero of the brand. The hero is the person who works the 50-hour work week, spending whether it's $5,000 on a used bike or $12,000 like I got a new Husky. That person that loves moto so much that they're spending the money and they're the ones going to the track to ride. That's the hero of our story. So I feel like you kind of need to honor those people who ride motorcycles.
This is the sort of thing, obviously the Phoenix stuff, but this sort of thing that you want to make sure you do some of, so you're not just a full commodity, on everybody down, and everybody in the whole town has all the same exact brand. You don't stand out. You don't have anything different. I think that could be a good example.
Oh, I agree. I mean, I go back to it goes back for me to working at Stoughton Cycles. We always had whatever was new and cool. And that's why, back in those days when the Indy Supercross would roll into town, the people who'd be coming over from Illinois or Missouri, they'd always make sure to stop into our store because we were kind of known to have those things. And my dealer side of me, and I know that a lot's changed. I know that unfortunately there's a lot of, parts kids that don't even come out from behind the counter these days. But what I always kind of hope that maybe we can be that small thing that helps get people jazzed and excited to talk about something new, because when people are coming into your store, people come to your store for 2 reasons. They want to see what's new and they want to see what's on sale, and I'm hoping that we can be that something new that lets people have a conversation with the people walking through their store. Those people are passionate about motorcycling. That's why they're walking in there. It'd be nice if the parts, people would be equally passionate back, and, my story has always been is as soon as it's not fun for that customer to walk through your dealer doors anymore, maybe they go to the dealer down the road, but maybe there isn't a dealer down the road. Maybe the next dealer is a town away. Now, instead of going riding that weekend and they need oil and a spark plug, they're screw it. I can't get over there to go get it. So they fan it. Well, they don't ride. Neither do their 2 buddies. Now 3 people didn't go to the local track, 3 less people like paying gate, fees. Track starts suffering, So I know it's kind of a weird ecosystem of it, but it can happen, and we've seen it happen. So anything that keeps the customers coming through your dealer doors stoked is only good for Moto.
Want to talk about the other stuff that you do and where? Okay.
But yeah, that's, to me, it's an easy tie-in because, as you know, I work for Motorcycle Industry Jobs. MotorcycleIndustryJobs.com is a job board that Alex Balin, who you interviewed for a podcast earlier this year, Alex started MIJ 15 years ago. I like to think out of the kindness of his heart. I'm sure he wanted to make some money, but really at the end of the day, I mean, it's been a heck of a resource for our motorcycle industry, for people to become that next Jason Gearld, to find their job wherever it might be, and for the people who have been in the industry to keep them connected and keep them in an industry that hopefully they love and loves them back. So I started helping Alex, it's probably been a year and a half or so ago, just to try to get in front of more manufacturers. I mean, the boards for everybody from dealers posting jobs across the nation, as well as all the way. I mean, we have the OEMs, Yamaha and Suzuki, Honda, Kawasaki. They all post jobs on our website. So we kind of cover the gamut. And the thing about MIJ that keeps it so important to me is if I'm helping a shop find that next passionate, parts guy or something like that, then that goes back to the story we were just talking about. It makes that shop hopefully that much more passionate for the customers walking through their store, and keeps the dealers strong. And if say the dealers aren't strong, people aren't riding. If people aren't riding, nobody needs to buy Phoenix handlebars or grips.
Part of what you do and part of what you believe in is doing that business development stuff for Motorcycle Industry Jobs. Yeah. So I'd recommend anybody to follow you there and follow them.
Yeah, I'm definitely, I'm a big fan of, what Alex created with MIJ. I mean, like I said, it wasn't an opportunity. It wasn't something that existed when I got into the industry. And you're right. I take the jobs, and I don't do it with all the dealer jobs, but I do take the jobs that put you on this side of the industry, and I share those to my personal LinkedIn, and I tried to write something always funny and try to make people smile and make it memorable, because it's hey, it's the motorcycle industry at the end of the day. We're not curing cancer here, folks. I mean, we're just riding motorcycles, and let's keep it fun.
This motorcycling thing, or the business to do with motorcycling, and all of a sudden it's like talking to your neighbor, it's all good and everything. The world isn't as bad as it's being portrayed as being on social media.
Nah, there's sometimes I like to be the ostrich with his head in the ground. It's I just want to care about motorcycles, and I can't solve all the other stuff. I know it's important. Unfortunately, there's some people out there fighting for it, but I'm just going to be the dumb motorcycle guy. And back on the MIJ side of things, it's I'm not a recruiter. Of course, a lot of people think that I kind of play that part because of the stuff that I write on LinkedIn. But at the same time, I like to think hey, if somebody, Phil Amendolia gave me that opportunity many moons ago, and here I am. So if somebody does hit me up, it's I've had a lot of people write me and ask me questions, and I'm happy to answer those kind of questions and point people in the right direction. As hey, there's a little serendipity sometimes with landing certain jobs, but at the same time, you got to think how you position yourself to be in that, in that line of fire if those jobs come about. So if I can help guide anybody, I'm happy to. I'm really surprised that some people who I've talked to recently, who are 20-year veterans, but maybe they haven't had to do a resume or apply to a job, and some of the stuff that they're saying to me that seems so absolutely common sense that it makes me shake my head. But then you're holy crap, this just goes to show it's smart people sometimes have been out of, they haven't been unemployed, or they've not had to look for something, that they're still confused as to where to even start that process. And that's something that, when you do this every day with MIJ, I kind of have like a little bit of knowledge there to kind of hopefully help guide people along. So
Thanks again for listening to this lost tape of the Dealership Fixit Podcast. These guest interviews still hit hard, and we're bringing them back re-edited, sharpened up, and focused entirely on what matters, helping dealerships like yours improve, grow, and win. If you got something out of this one, hit that share button or forward it to a dealership friend who needs it. And make sure you're following the show so we can keep bringing you more content like this with convos with people shaping the power sports industry. Catch you on the next one.
Still guessing what to pay on a used bike? Still holding aged units that just won't move? It's time for a real system. Moto Hunt's ultimate used inventory playbook shows how the best dealers are finding better inventory, pricing trades right, and turning used bikes faster with fewer mistakes and more margin. It's short, real, and free to download right now. Visit dealers.motohunt.com to grab your copy or check for the link in the notes.